Hello and welcome back to Comedy Means Business. It's July 28th, and today we're diving into Leanne, a new Netflix sitcom premiering July 31st. At the heart of the series is Leanne Morgan, a stand-up comedian from rural Tennessee who in singular fashion achieved her dream of headlining her own show just before turning 60. Leanne's path to comedy wasn't typical. Known for her clean, family-oriented material and unique Southern matriarch perspective, she took to the stage after seeing the impact her humor had on people while selling jewelry door to door. She's spent over 2.5 decades honing her craft, but only exploded in popularity fairly recently, building on her audience with viral clips during the pandemic and earning an all-new level of fandom with her 2023 Netflix special, I'm Every Woman. Built around Leanne's unique voice while taking its premise more so from her stand-up, Leanne sees a grandmother's life upended when her husband, played by Ryan Stiles, leaves her suddenly after 33 years of marriage, leading her to embark on a new chapter. Before stepping into the lead here, Morgan had completed only one notable supporting role in the recent Prime Video rom-com, You're Cordially Invited. She was admittedly intimidated by the prospect of leading her own TV series, but wound up doing so in the absence of an acting coach, with expert guidance from her co-creators Susan McMartin and Chuck Lorre, the latter of whom joins Leanne on our podcast today. Dubbed the king of sitcoms, Lorre has been working in television for more than 4 decades, in that time spurring the creation of such majorly popular comedies as The Big Bang Theory, Mom, and 2.5 Men. No stranger to crafting the stand-up driven sitcom, he worked earlier in his career with Brett Butler on ABC's Grace Under Fire, and more recently teamed up with Sebastian Maniscalco for Bookie, which ran for 2 seasons on Max. Leanne notably landed a 16-episode order on Netflix at a time when the prevalence of sitcoms is on the decline, with multicam comedies becoming a bit of a lost art in the 2023 words of Warner Brothers Television's Channing Dungey. Lorre estimates that when he started in show business, there were over 50 half-hour comedies on the air at any given time, cementing stardom for the likes of Seinfeld, Roseanne, and Ray Romano. But now, he guesses, there are probably less than 10. Here, he and Morgan discuss reasons for the decline of the sitcom, what keeps Lorre excited about the form, and what the process entails in building a series around a stand-up that speaks authentically to who they are. Leanne and Chuck, welcome.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you for having us.
So many great stories and so many great sitcoms are about characters at a moment of life transition. I guess change is inherently in the DNA of great stories, but what do you feel makes these kinds of stories resonate?
I guess, motivated by my own life experience, I've always been drawn to stories of reinvention and rebirth, starting over, hitting the wall and somehow continuing and then finding out what comes next. It's just a human story. It's nothing special, but it's something we all share.
I love that. Leanne, could you tell us about the first meeting for you both? I know Chuck had seen your Netflix special, I'm Every Woman, and really resonated with that and what he felt was a really unique and authentic voice. But tell us about your first meeting with Chuck and what stood out to you.
Well, Matt, he flew from California to Tennessee and to Knoxville and had lunch with my family and held my grandbaby on my back porch. And what I heard, the lore was, he didn't want me to fly to LA and think that it was empty promises, I guess, because I have had television deals in the past that did not make it, didn't even go to pilot. And so he came to my house and sat and went through my Netflix special and told me what he loved about it. And I was floored, and my family was floored. And it was one of the most special times in 25 years of doing stand-up in my career.
Wow. Chuck, I mean, again, you've talked about sort of what you responded to in that special and in discovering Leanne's work. But that aside, I mean, you've worked on so many shows like this over the years. I'm sure that not every stand-up could carry a show. And there are so many comedians with great voices that, you wouldn't necessarily walk through this with as seamlessly. What did you see in Leanne that made you feel she was that person?
Well, I guess there's an honesty to her stand-up that struck me. It was singular. There's nothing contrived. There's nothing borrowed from anyone else. It's her take on life. And when you see a true original, at the very least, take a moment to appreciate it, enjoy it. You may not develop a situation comedy around it, but you certainly can appreciate, the effort and the enormous amount of time, years and years of work that go into crystallizing that voice, making that voice, self-aware. And that's not to say that there are not other great stand-ups that could carry a show, whatever, but this is the lady I found. And I was overjoyed when I watched that stand-up act on Netflix. And the reason I didn't want to meet with her here in Los Angeles was I wanted to get to know her, because I think where she's from is part of who she is. I didn't think that was going to happen in the Pacific Palisades. And this was back before, when there still was a Pacific Palisades. This was, before our catastrophe. So that's another reason to go to Knoxville, which was, to have a more, real conversation with Leanne.
Yeah, that makes sense. Leanne, I know, well, it sounded like having a sitcom was sort of a childhood dream of yours. What were the sitcoms that most inspired you growing up? And was there any element of what they represented that you wanted to bring to your own show?
Oh my gosh, Matt, I could name a million. I thought about the other day, WKRP in Cincinnati. I used to love that show. I'm 59 years old, so I've grown up on sitcoms, but I loved Roseanne because I had seen her on Johnny Carson when she had that unbelievable set about her uterus was a honing device. And I thought that's exactly who she is. And then the sitcom, building that around a stand-up, that was a big inspiration.
Yeah. Chuck, can you tell us more about your process in working alongside an artist like Leanne to help develop a starring vehicle that really fits who they are?
There's a part of her stand-up that talks about her girlfriend who is pushing 60 and going through a divorce. And that really struck me, particularly, Leanne's take on, the calamity, the catastrophic fallout from something like that happening. And I thought that might be an interesting place to start the show. That, that change of life, that pivot when your life changes without your permission, and everything you think you don't know, and then now go forward. That's the kind of storytelling that appeals to me, because if you have the right actor or actress, and we do in Leanne, you feel compelled to root for her. You care. There's the audience is, has to, God willing, wants her to succeed and find happiness and find some security in this world. And when you have that, then the jokes and the comedy follows. You don't start from the joke. You start from the humanness of a character trying to reinvent themselves after a calamity.
How would you say Leanne compares to sort of comedian as character, the model of that for shows you've explored in the past, like going back to Grace Under Fire, for example? And how has writing for Leanne's voice differed from working with your other myriad classic TV characters?
Well, I think if you look at the credits on that first episode, you'll see that it's written by Susan McMartin, myself, and Leanne. That was an important part of this process, was saying, no, you have to sit down and write this with us. We are not going to just, thrust this script at you and say, go. Mm-hmm. It's your voice. We have to have your voice. Otherwise, we're spinning our wheels. So capturing Leanne's voice was a primary consideration. And we started with that. I mean, we sat down and how would this character deal with this? What would they say? What are the words? What is the tone? There's a comedic tonality to what Leanne does. It's in her act. It's in her stand-up. You can feel it. And you can feel that it's mastery too. That 10,000 hours is there. You can see it and hear it. You can relax when you watch her stand-up because you're in good hands. It's one of those weird things I've noticed, that when somebody has mastery, like Leanne does, you can just relax and enjoy as the audience, because they got it. They got it. They're going to land the plane. So when we were working on this first script, the primary consideration was making sure we found, Leanne's voice, because that's the singular thing that makes this worth watching.
Yeah, Leanne, were there any specific kind of non-negotiables for you in terms of translating who you are and your voice for the screen? Were there any elements that you felt were very important to you in approaching this?
I really wanted it to be authentic to the South. A lot of people think they know how we are in the South, and it's kind of stereotyping, but they were wonderful, honoring, my voice and ask my opinion about what I would really say, what that character would say, even down to the mayonnaise, Matt. He knows I'm not a cusser, honey. I don't want to cuss. I don't care if somebody else cusses, but I've got a kind of I've got boundaries. They kept those because I'm a Southern mama. We don't say
Yeah.
ugly words in front of our children.
Yeah. Yeah.
We may say it in the laundry room by ourselves, but they found my voice. And I thought, I don't know if I can even add to this. By the time it was over with, I thought, oh my gosh. I mean, they really did. And how I feel about my family and how my parents, and I want to, take care of them, and launching children, and how I am as a grandmother. I mean, they really watched that. And I guess in the writer's room, they told me they listened to every episode of a podcast I had done, read my book. They really wanted to know how, because, and Chuck said to me on that back porch, he goes, Leanne, I'm from Long Island. You've got to help me. So, they really got the church scenes. They were really sweet about the church scenes. They knew that was important to me, to not, stereotype people going to church. All of that was just really precious.
Yeah, for sure. Well, it sounds from what I'd read, Chuck, that Netflix approached you about a show when they learned that you were keen on working with Leanne. Can you tell us more about that process in terms of the pitch, in terms of developing the show? I would love to hear, for example, like how the process of developing the show compared to when you were starting out working in the world of network television, and what is easier and what is harder working in this new world you're in now, for example.
I got a phone call from Andy Weil at Netflix saying, we understand that you've been meeting with Leanne Morgan. If you're going to pursue this, we want to be your first stop to talk about going forward. They were all over this. I think they personally are big fans, but they also have those algorithms and shit. So they know what they've got there, with her concerts on Netflix. And they were very aggressive about pursuing this. I was really ambivalent about how to do this. And Netflix was very, adamant that we do this in front of an audience, old school. We do this old school, 4 cameras in front of an audience, kitchen, living room, very simple. No car chases, no CGI. It's a little play, which is, what an audience show is. You put on a little play once a week. The common sense of that is that Leanne is, remarkable in front of a live audience. That's proven. Why not keep that going? Why not keep that going and put on a show in front of a live audience, which I've been doing a long time.
Yeah. Obviously, in this case, Netflix was the natural, obvious destination, but what generally informs your decision as to whether you go for streaming or linear with your shows now?
I think streaming or linear is not really ever a factor. I think what you want to do is be in business with people who are enthusiastic and excited and got your back, and they very much want what you're doing and they want to help you succeed. I think I can't micromanage this to think about linear. And obviously, if you're doing a show where there's like a lot of adult content, you're not going on CBS.
Yeah,
right?
Sure.
You're not going to go on a network that has, it has to dance to the, to the network standards and that time issue.
Right.
The show has to be 21, 22 minutes long. It's literally, there are 8-9 minutes of commercials on a network show now. This show could have very easily been on a network.
Yeah, totally.
Because we did adhere to Leanne's voice, which is family friendly. The enthusiasm from Netflix, and having been there with the Kaminsky Method, it's a remarkable organization. I've been in business a long time, and I'd never seen synergy before. There's that magical word synergy actually is real there. Everything seems to function towards a common goal. They're not at war with one another.
That's high praise. I'm sure they would appreciate that. In terms of the development process, like what was the process to develop, like to build out the world around Leanne, to find the other characters and to cast this show? Obviously, you have sitcom royalty like Kristen Johnson and so many other amazing veteran comedic actors, but maybe we could talk about that, the world building of the show and the casting around Leanne.
Well, I'd worked with Kristen on Mom, and she's a rock star. I mean, I guess you're not supposed to do that anymore now that they've made a TV commercial out of it, but okay. I've watched her work opposite Allison Janney for several years, and she's, there was never a second place finisher for this role. It was always Kristen.
Mm-hmm.
As soon as we decided that the heartbeat of the show was going to be in this relationship between these sisters, it was Kristen. It was always Kristen. And then the rest of the process was casting. I'd worked with Ryan Stiles on 2.5 Men, and I knew in my heart he never really gets an opportunity to do a character with this kind of emotional depth. He certainly never gets to play a character who's the bad guy, the villain in the piece.
Oh yeah.
And it was just that I just felt in my heart he can do anything, and he brought it. That was an important part of this puzzle. Susan and I didn't want to create the character as a straw man where he's just a horrible human being. He's a conflicted human being. He's a confused human being.
Yeah.
And not simply the bad guy.
Yeah.
And I think Ryan achieves that. There's something about him that's, despite the stupidity of what he's doing, you still care for him.
100%. Man, he's great on the show. Leanne, you talked about, well, Chuck had mentioned the aspect of this in terms of you performing in front of a live audience. I'm sure that was intuitive to you from what you do in stand-up, but like at the same time, you've talked about being a little bit intimidated by the demands of this project. This is the first major series you are headlining, and it was sort of a new world for you to walk into. How did you get to a place where you felt confident? Do you work with an acting coach? And how did you work through some of your fears, your concerns about going from stage to screen with this?
Oh, my darling Matt, it was terrifying because I've only done one little movie. I played a tiny little part in a movie, and that's it. So it was very daunting. But I didn't have an acting coach because I think they want me to be, me, not me, the character, but you know what I mean? They didn't want to change me. Everybody wanted to see was Precious. While we were doing stuff, I'd go, wait, what is that? What is that word? And then everybody would tell me what it was. But learning the script and then the rehearsal, that really helped me. I had these pros around me, thank goodness. And then Thursday we would shoot what we couldn't shoot in front of a live audience. And that was daunting because like when I did the movie, I was just expecting people to laugh. Yeah. And then I realized they can't laugh. They're trying to film something. But that's hard for a comedian. I would think in my head, oh, Lord, I suck. Oh, gosh, somebody help me. Then we would get in front of that live audience, and that felt like home to me. And I thought, okay, I know I've got comedy time, and I know that, how I would really feel if my husband left me. I know what it would really feel like if I was worried about my parents and one was in the hospital. And then I felt more at home. By the time we wrapped, I thought, oh, okay, maybe I could be good at this, Yeah. And everybody was so helpful and wanted to see me win, but I did not have an acting coach. Chuck may rethink that. I don't know.
Was there something specific in working with Chuck in terms of the writing, in terms of the direction that either made you really laugh or made you feel seen?
Yes, from the word go, when he said that I had mastered this, Matt, on my back porch, that was so validating for me coming from Chuck Lorre. And then on set, when he would say, we would shoot something and he would come across through there I think we may have kissed in the mouth. That meant all the world to me. He knows I need words of affirmation. I think you know that about me now, don't you, Chuck Lorre? I could see it in his face, and there were probably times when he probably was like, oh, Lord, Leanne, come on. But I wanted to do well for him. I wanted to do well for you. Could you tell that?
I could. My parents are gone, and I'm still trying to do good for them. So we're paying it forward, I guess, in some weird way. Did you see that, Mom? Did you see that?
Yeah, I did. I felt that way. I wanted to do well for him. He had put so much into me. This was the dream of my life, and I wanted to do well for Susan McMartin. It became. Honest to goodness, mainly, as I'm not trying to be sappy, we all had a ball and fell in love and friendship, and I have missed everybody, and I try to stay in touch with everybody, and it was like a family. It really was. And when I wrapped, they said you're going to be sad, and I thought, I'll get back to my family, and I've got to go on tour, and I got a lot going on. I was so sad. It took me a long time to process all of it. It was a kind of a grieving when it was over, and that's why I want it to be successful, and I want to keep going.
Yeah. Well, part of what was interesting to me about your collaboration here is that I just have a feeling that traditional sitcom, so to speak, and multicam comedies built around stand-ups in particular have become a little less prevalent today than they were in the decades past, in the heyday of things like Friends and Everybody Loves Raymond and even the Big Bang Theory. I was looking back at an interview from a couple years ago, and Channing Dungey, who Chuck, you know well, at Warner Brothers Television, she called a multicam comedy specifically a bit of a lost art, citing you and what you continue to do as one big exception to that. Like, would you agree with that sort of notion, Chuck? And to what do you attribute sort of maybe a little bit of a dwindling in this area?
Well, at the risk of dating myself, but that's all I do these days. When I started writing sitcoms, there were probably 40, 50 of them on every week. Well, Fox was just getting started in the late 80s, but if there were, 3 or 4 of them on every night from 8 to 10, and then 10 o'clock was a drama. So if you times that by 4, 4 times that, there's 16 a day, and then times 5 nights. And there you go. You've got over 50 shows a week, that are half-hour comedies. Now there's probably 6, right?
Yeah, I mean, that is striking.
It is really. I sometimes feel like, I look down and see if my feet are in a tar pit, and, there's a dinosaur element here, is what I'm trying to say.
Why do you think this is? Because I feel like these kinds of shows are evergreen and they are so beloved. So I'm curious.
When you strip away all the commentary, it's putting on a play. It's really all you're doing. You're putting on a 2-act play, sometimes a 3-act play. There's a little piece, and then there's the credits, and then there's act 1, and then there's commercials, and then there's act 2.
Yeah.
You take the commercials out, it's still a 2-3-act play shot in front of an audience that's watching 2 people talking in a kitchen. And you would go to Broadway and pay $500 to see that, and may or may not laugh, but there, that's theater, and that's what this is. And we get do-overs. That's the one advantage we have over, a real theatrical presentation, is when something doesn't work, we do it over. We rewrite it on the spot, and we change lines, we cut lines, we try and improve what we hope is comedy, and we do it again, and all with one simple, very, very simple goal. And that's to cause laughter. That's the goal. We're not educators. We're not pastors. Our goal is to cause laughter. And I think if you can boil it down to how simple this is, that's what sustains me. Did people laugh? And then I had a good day.
Yeah.
You have to trust your own instincts as to I believe in this, but then again, a live studio audience will absolutely tell you you're wrong.
Yeah. So are there moments like that where you?
Oh, all the time.
Yeah. Oh, interesting.
All the time. It's heartbreaking. After doing this for over almost 40 years, I've been doing this for so long, and it still astonishes me as to, my hubris when I think, oh, this is gold. This is going to work great. This is going to bring the house down. Nothing. Crickets. You can hear the freeway nearby. It's the audience that you thought is going to just die laughing does nothing. And that happens every week. And it's the nature of it. It's kind of wonderful in a way. And Leanne, this, it trains you. It's its own training ground to, recognize that comedy is a process. And sometimes you get it, sometimes you don't. And when you don't, you have work to do.
What do you do in the moment if you're on set and you're with an audience?
I panic.
It's not. Those writers start walking toward me, and I'm thinking I'm going to faint because they're going to give me new lines. But they'll throw something at me or Kristen or whatever, and we do it. And if that doesn't do it, we do it again, and we find that funny. And at first that scared me to death. And by the end of it, I thought, okay, I know now why they do that. And it does. That's what makes it so special.
The simple rule is if it's not funny in front of 200 human beings sitting there watching, it's probably not funny in your living room.
Yeah.
That audience is a vital part of the process. If they're just sitting there watching, and you hear some mercy laughs or some guys trying to help with a snort, you have to, if it seems like, it's a simple decision to go, oh, this isn't working. Why? Let's fix it. Rather than just go ahead and put it on television. It seems self-destructive. It's like, do you really want to get, if you want to fail, go ahead, put it on television because it stinks here. So why would you proceed with it?
Right.
And it's, it's generally the words. The words are everything. If it's not, the old adage, if it's not on the page, it's not on the stage,
And somehow writing is something that's had to be fought for as like a cornerstone of this industry. And it's the thing, to be respected and valued. And it's like the thing that the whole thing rests on, right? There's nothing without a good script.
Look at the great comedies, Seinfeld, and Cheers, Frasier, Everybody Loves Raymond. Great writing, beautiful, beautiful scripts, and truly funny, not contrived, truly, truly funny. And writing staffs like that, that was the gold standard. It was, if you had, what I would do is, I'd watch other comedies and study them.
Yeah.
I studied Cheers. I watched them. Why is this work? Because when you think about Cheers, 90% of Cheers was in one room, the bar.
Yeah.
One room, where I think the first 20 pages of the episode was in the living room, and the second 20 of the thing was up in the bedroom. And it was really just, and it was perfect.
Yeah, and there's something magic in that because it's like it does feel like something you have to fight through with films as well. If you're going to do something that limited in terms of setting, how do you keep it constantly compelling? That seems like the hardest thing.
It's words and performance.
Yeah.
There's no way to hide a bad writing and a misfired performance. You cannot hide it. You can't slap music on it.
Yeah.
The camera isn't doing any wonderful cinematic things. The camera's just sitting there. It's not doing anything. It's a camera on wheels. It's just sitting there. So it has to be words and performance. It took me a long time to learn that. I really did. I fought against it for many years.
Mm-hmm.
I was trying to make little movies early on, and that's not what this is. This is a little bit of a, faux theater.
You've sometimes had to sort of go back to the drawing board. Like I believe with The Big Bang Theory, you reshot the pilot. Was there anything fundamental about Leanne that surprised you mid-process where you had to sort of adjust?
No, not really. No, the heartbeat of the show is a two-hander with Leanne and Kristen.
Yeah.
We knew that going in, and I had complete faith that the learning curve for Leanne would be quick, and it was. I mean, she got comfortable in this genre, this form of comedy really quickly. I mean, look what we did. If you watch the first episode, the very first scene, we're asking her to play a woman in shock, a woman who's been devastated by the news that her husband's left her. That's not just hit the mark and say a joke. There's acting going on there.
Right.
Maybe it was a miscalculation, but at the end result would be, no, it wasn't. We threw you into the deep end, Leanne. We said, here, act, right? Act shock and grief and anger, and rage at the betrayal of this man, and fear about your parents and, concerns about your children. Right out of the gate, we asked Leanne to do it all, and she did.
Well, and let me tell you, Matt, that I can tear up right now thinking about those scenes in that pilot episode and what I felt, because the writing and what she had to say to her husband who had left her. I mean, I could cry about it now. It was like if I could feel like that really happened to me, but it was that writing that I just know what that would feel like, even though I haven't been through it. And it still makes me tear up.
And you of all people know how many versions of that scene between you and Ryan we wrote and tried and experimented with till we found the one that's in the pilot. We didn't have it right out of the gate. We had to find it. There was so many scenes we wrote and we rewrote and try it this way, try it that way. And there was a lot of discovery that had to happen. It'd be great if we had it right out of the box. But like, as you said, Matt, with The Big Bang Theory, the entire first pilot was a misfire for the most part, except for Johnny and Jim. We kind of like swung and missed at the whole damn thing. So, there is a learning curve to put in there. Certainly there has been for me. So.
Yeah. That's part of the best of television. It's the same thing with Game of Thrones. I think they went back on the drama side and totally reconfigured at the beginning. So one of the things that was interesting to me about this project and the time we're in is like, I believe Netflix gave you an unprecedented 16 episode order for Leanne out of the gate, which is like a big rarity in streaming. To me, this is something that's really exciting. Also with The Pit, it feels like there's a broadcast model that's making its way into streaming, these higher episode counts. That means on one level, there's more work for people in television. On another level, I feel like having these higher episode counts is a big part of what cements a show in the cultural memory as something you'll never forget. Something like The Office or The Big Bang Theory or Two and a Half Men. What do you think about this?
Well, I've done a couple of streaming things where the order is for 8 or 10 episodes. And as a viewer, I love to watch, these streaming shows that are 8, 10 episodes. Then you wait 2 years to see to carry the conversation on.
Right.
The wonderful thing about the higher episode order from a streamer or from a network is you have an opportunity to build a relationship with the audience that gets a little deeper.
Yeah, exactly. Has your family seen the show yet, Leanne? I assume they have. What did they say to you? If so, what was the response?
They haven't seen all of it, but they flew out and they saw episodes, and they just were in awe of it, and they think it's wonderful, and everybody's excited to come out. But I mean, we still pinch ourselves. We don't believe it, Matt. I still wake up and think, did I really do a television show? I would drive up every day. They had Leanne in where you drive up to park your car, and I think, oh, she spells her name like I do. Like it was a lot for me to take in. I still don't believe it. I mean, it is so special. Can you imagine? I mean, you think about, like he said, how many multicams are right now. And Netflix said to us, I remember it, Chuck, I don't know if you do, but they were like, we want Leanne this to bring back multicams. And then, I've had people tell me in the media and that have seen episodes and all that, they go, this is the show we need right now. Everybody loves this comfortable, they feel love and comfort. For example, Mom just got put on Netflix and went to the top 10.
Yeah.
Is that true? I didn't know that.
Yes, Chuck Lorre.
That's great. Oh, I'm so happy to hear that. I didn't know that.
Oh, everybody's loving
Terrific
it.
show.
And my sister, when Mom was over, and I've gotten to watch a lot of it, but I haven't seen every episode like she has. She grieved and said, would you please ask him to keep doing that? Everybody fell in love with all those characters and wanted to know what happened. And I hope they feel that way about Leanne and our characters.
Are you ready and prepared to come back for a season 2? And if so, are there things you want to do to take this story even deeper?
Yes. Yes, I hope it comes back yes, my darling. I'm on pins and needles. I've never prayed so hard in my life. Yes, I want to go back. And yes, I think there's so much to do with this character. I hope you fall in love with her and her friends. Just wait till you see the guest stars. Just wait till you see, because she's got a future ahead of her after this is, stirred up and she's got to start over. She looks forward to the future. And I do think people are going to be inspired by it. And I'm excited to see what she's going to do. Mm-hmm. And we do have a few ideas, Matt.
All right. Love it. Well, Leanne is a really wonderful show. I'm a really big admirer of both of your work. Congratulations, Leanne and Chuck. Thank you for joining us.
Thanks, Matt.
Thank you, Matt. Thank you, my darling.
Of course.